What is up, everybody? Welcome to Daily Betslip, Tuesday, July 26th, day of the Subway Series beginning. My Mets, New York Yankees down in Flushing. I'm Reed Wallach. You can follow me on Twitter at Reed Wallach. With me is Ben Heisler. You can follow him on Twitter at Benny Heis. Loaded show on a Tuesday. The usual Tuesday squad. We got, like I said, Mets, Yankees. We're going to do some Big Ten football preview from two Big Ten guys. WNBA best bets, MLB best bets. Loaded show. Ben, what's up, man?
What's up, Reed? Happy Subway Series to you. I actually have a little bit of a bone to pick with all you fine New Yorkers who have gone ahead and just taken every single subway system in America and said, you know what? This is our series. Like, there's plenty of places. Like, you can take the subway to Chicago between on the north side. It's the Red Line. Like, that could also be a subway series. I'm sure Los Angeles, you can go from LA to Orange County and be able to call that a subway series. Why does New York have to get it? And all their chest puffed out. You get the Subway Series. It could have been anything.
That's New York for you. That's New York. We just take things and make it our own. That is just how it works. That's what it is. We're the Subway Series. And probably because we are the most recognizable subway system due to a myriad of different issues, like how gross we are and other things like that. So, yes, we are the Subway Series.
All right. I think that's a reasonable
of course, because we had the World Series, though, way back when, 20 some odd years ago. So that's probably how it is really taken on its own whole life as the Subway Series when that World Series happened. But yes,
you've gotten a chance to see two New York Mets teams play in a World Series in your lifetime, which is pretty cool. I haven't got a chance to see them win yet, but perhaps on the way sooner rather than later.
But yes, big game going down Flushing. I am going to the game right after the show, so we need to go through this show very quickly so I can get to the game. I got my jersey on. I'm ready to go. But it is a big series for, I think, both teams, and we're going to get into it. It is our game of the night. But first time ever that each team has been sole possession of first place in their respective divisions while they play in the Subway Series. So a lot on the line here with the Yankees trying to hold the best record in the MLB, the Mets trying to hold off the defending World Series champion Braves in the NL East. So a lot going on. Like I said, Big Ten football preview, best bets. We got a loaded show today. So let's get right into it. Ben, you suggested this bad beat. So before I say it, did you have anything on this game or were you just an innocent bystander?
No, I was an innocent bystander here. It was a situation where, you have plenty of baseball to bet on a Monday slate. It was a 12-game slate. And you and I kind of like to just kind of go through everything and attempt to figure out, like, what might have caught our eye. And not only did the Nationals win this game as a massive dog, which has been a trend this year, by the way, for anybody betting on the Dodgers big at home, another bad loss for LA as a massive favorite. Like, this happened plenty of times against the Pirates earlier this year. It's now happening with Washington. But in particular, Reed, that fifth inning under, if you had it, you felt great about it. And then all of a sudden it went out right in front of your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to break it down? I don't know. Did you say were you watching it? I know, obviously, Dodgers Nationals. You're thinking 1-0 in the fifth. You're just hoping that the Dodgers get, you get through this here. But if you want to break it down for me,
sure. I mean, you have Tony Gonsolin on the mound. He hadn't lost a game at home. Obviously, played in the All-Star game this year, and ironically enough, I think I made a joke on Twitter during the All-Star game that what would happen if Tony Gonsolin's only loss of the season came at his home ballpark during the All-Star game. And, of course, that ended up being the case. He takes his first loss coming back from the All-Star game. So now 2 losses in a row, completely fade Tony Gonsolin the rest of the way.
The dream's dead.
Dream's dead. Yeah, everything you kind of hyped up from before, no longer in play. But Washington just jumped all over him, got 4 runs in the inning. Those were the only 4 runs that they would score. It would end up being a 4-1 ball game. Just crazy to think that a lineup as dangerous as LA we're only able to get 1 run on the board in the third. But yeah, if you had that under 4.5, considering who was on the mound, considering that, the Dodgers weren't scoring runs, it felt like an absolute lock and just completely escaped with that bad 4-run fifth inning.
Yeah, no, that is this is the definition of a bad beat where you get a lowly Nationals team, worst record in the National League, just kind of storm in and the Dodgers no less hang 4 on them and get that over the first 5 total. So brutal beat if you were on the Nationals. But let's get rid of that vibes. No bad vibes. I'm going to the Met game. We got some best bets to give out. So let's turn the page here. We got best bets on a Tuesday. Ben, you have 1 WNBA play, 2 MLB. I have 3 baseball bets before we get over to the game of the night. So why don't you do first your WNBA play, and then we'll get into baseball.
So let's start. It's the Commissioner's Cup in the WNBA tonight between the Las Vegas Aces and the Chicago Sky. And yes, Reed, we're going to be talking about the Las Vegas Aces tonight. I completely understand that every time it seems like we end up coming on the show together, we always end up talking about the Aces. And by the way, I know that a lot of you guys have weighed in with some of your MLB picks. We'll get to those coming up before Reed and I do our WNBA or do our baseball picks. But let's go ahead and just knock out. It's a big game. There's $500,000 $500,000 on the line. The winning team gets $30,000 per player, and it's the two best teams in the WNBA. I like the Sky to win the game, but I think the better bet here is to go ahead and jump on Las Vegas as a plus moneyline underdog in the first half. If you're looking at overall net rating in the WNBA this year, especially in the second half, the Aces have been barnstormers, in particular against Chicago. If you go back to the first half, they had a 28-point lead on Chicago in the first quarter, and eventually the Sky ended up coming back in Las Vegas to win that game. They get off to really good starts. They shoot the ball well. They like to push pace. Chicago eventually makes a lot of ultimately transitions and fixes to a lot of that pace, slow things down, control tempo in the second half. But the fact that you can get the Aces, who have been by far and away the better first half team since the second half started compared to Chicago, and get them at plus money, that's the way that I'm going to go here. So I like Las Vegas. I've seen them at plus 112, seen other books have it as high as plus 120. Just feels like the right money line play here before eventually jumping on Chicago at some point live when they're the better team in the second half at making adjustments.
Yeah. What is a bet slip with me and either you or Donovan without an Aces play? So I love it. I like that. I like the angle, getting them in the first half. So with you there, Ben, on the Aces first half money line. Let's get into best bets from the community, though. We want to get that WNBA play out. Then we'll move over to baseball. So let's do our first one up. We're looking at the Astros money line. Minus 165 from our guy, Chick-fil-A, at Pump and Swag 33. Laying the chalk, minus 165. The Astros playing the lowly Oakland Athletics. Luis Garcia on the mound, minus 165. Ben, are you laying this chalk, or do you think it might be a trap with Frankie Montas on the other side?
That's the crazy thing about it is that I think Montas remains live. But again, they might pull him out at any time, knowing that he's likely going to be on the move. So I'm not particularly backing Oakland, even though Montas has had a solid year and somebody that's had that type of opportunity before. I think the play makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Chick-fil-A going to, a juicy favorite. Interesting. It feels like there's a trap there with laying minus 165, road team, right? Astros best team in the league. I don't know. We'll see.
I think they also lost the night before too, did Houston. So maybe it's another opportunity to get them on the bounce back. And it's a low scoring game too.
Yeah.
And the trend this year has been a ton of unders, in large part because of how dominant their starting pitching has been. Oakland has had all sorts of issues offensively. So even if Montas goes, 5 2/3, giving up a couple runs, it may not even be enough.
Yeah. And Ben, I do want to go to the comments though, because Max Borikov chimes in. He knows you're a Chicago guy. Any comment on Wilson Contreras' freak out after a singular pitch was thrown inside this afternoon? I didn't see this, so did you see it? I have no idea.
No, I turned on the game maybe about 30 minutes ago because I knew that Contreras, potentially his last bat as a Cub, was coming up. And
future Met Wilson Contreras.
Wilson Contreras, yeah.
Future Met, though.
Very likely a future Met could be him and David Robertson pitching for his second New York team. Maybe they look at Ian Happ as well for his versatility. If you want to take all the Cubs, Reed, I know that the Mets.
Well, it worked so great last year.
Yeah, but thank you very much for Pete Crow Armstrong. Looking forward to eventually seeing him in a Cubs uniform. I'm not sure. Maybe, Max, it was because, he's rumored to be going to a team to be going and playing for a championship, maybe a pitch inside. He felt like it could have taken him out of the running to go and move on. He obviously loves Chicago and wanted to stay there long term, and maybe that could still be the case. But he's well aware of the fact that he could be moved. Obviously got saluted by the crowd in the 7th inning today. So I think that might have been why. It might have been thinking, hey, you're possibly taking away from my opportunity to go and play for a championship this year. But pure speculation.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's hard-hitting reporting from Ben Heisler there.
Well, yeah.
The Wilson Contreras situation. Back though, best bet from the community. We're looking at player prop though in our game of the night, so we won't give away too much of what we're thinking. But DJ LeMahieu over 1.5 total bases plus 130 from at P Lane 5 Parker Lane. He says that DJ's been on fire. He's going over this total. Ben, any thoughts here on LeMahieu over 1.5 total bases?
I don't mind it. I know that obviously he has been hitting the ball well. I think if I go back and take a look at some of the batter versus pitcher numbers from today, see if I can pull that up in the process. But I do think LeMahieu has hit Walker very well in the past. I think especially like if I were targeting this, I think 1.5 makes sense, but I'd almost maybe just move back to getting the singles because that's kind of what LeMahieu does. Mm-hmm. So if you can get him not necessarily for total bases, but maybe just to get one single, you might be able to get a little bit better value there without having him necessarily have to get the 1.5. So I think the play makes sense. Obviously locked in at the plate, and the Yankees need him. He's going to get plenty of bats at the top of the lineup. But I think I probably prefer the prop for singles as opposed for total bases in this case for LeMahieu.
Yeah, not going to give away too much of my thoughts on this game because we are talking about the game of the night. No real opinion, though, on LeMahieu. I know he is kind of swinging the bat well right now, but just no opinion there. Our last and final one comes from a regular to Daily Betslip. A little chalky parlay. Braves, Rays, moneyline parlay, plus 175. Braves are playing the Phillies, and the Rays are playing the Orioles, so plus 175. Ben, any thoughts here? I have a play on the Braves game, so I won't give much of a comment.
Yeah, I have a play on the Braves game as well. So I probably like beers and bow ties quite a lot, but I'm a big Aaron Nola guy, and I like Spencer Strider, but I think he's gotten a little bit too hyped up, and I know that upsets a lot of people. One being our guy Joe Summers. So I mean, I wrote an article today, Reed, that states how Aaron Nola is being vastly overlooked for somebody that could catch up to Sandy Alcantara for the NL Cy Young Award. So if he can't win as a short dog at home, then my argument is starting to tread water a little bit further, and now the water's starting to rise. So if it's got the Braves in it, I don't think I can support it tonight.
Yeah, but we will see. Actually, you know what? Let's just get to my 3 baseball bets. I'm just going to give 3 money line winners out right now. This will take no more than 90 seconds, I think. We'll start with that Phillies game for me. I'm going to take the Phillies as that short underdog against the Braves. Like you said, Aaron Nola, I saw your social clip on Aaron Nola to win Cy Young. And I did my own research, using your kind of push. I went and looked into it. I don't think Aaron Nola is going to win the Cy Young because I do think Sandy's ultimately going to win. I just think he's too far ahead of everyone. Yeah. So I don't think Nola's going to win, but Nola's been damn good this year. All his metrics right there in the top 5. His ERA is sitting above 3, but his FIP is below that. Whip great, generates soft contact. He goes deep into games. I like Aaron Nola, and you make a great point with Spencer Strider right there. The numbers are insane. He's an ERA right at 3. His FIP is a run lower at 2. Striking out over 13 batters per 9. I mean, the numbers are there. But when is this rookie going to come back to earth? I think it could be right now. The Braves just lost a tough one last night. I know they're the hottest team in baseball, but against a quality pitcher like Nola, I just feel like this is a big number for Spencer Strider, a rookie, to go on the road and lay against. Listen, the Phillies might not make the playoffs, but this is a decent baseball team. They are an average to above average baseball team on the right night. So I like the better pitcher at home as a home underdog in Aaron Nola. So give me the Phillies money line at plus 102. Keeping it going, 2 AL plays. We'll go 2 road teams. White Sox minus 110 in Colorado. Simply a fate of German Marquez. ERA over 6 at home. Getting a career low in strikeouts right now. This is a White Sox team that puts the ball in play. I think they're going to have zero issue putting the ball in play against this Rockies team on the road. Both teams are top 10 in weighted runs created plus in the month of July. I just trust Michael Kopech a little bit more. His biggest issue is his walk rate, 4 walks per 9 innings. Rockies bottom 10 this season in walks. So I think Kopech can maybe avoid his biggest issue and put together a comprehensive outing against a Rockies team that has a good offense. I just like this pitching matchup a little bit more for the White Sox as they look to get into the AL Central race. And last but not least, Guardians, plus 122 in Boston. Josh Winkowski, a favorite?
That sounds about right. I think we might have had this conversation the last time, right?
I don't know, but the Red Sox, there's so many injuries to this rotation that I get that the offense is there sometimes. I get that they struggle against the AL East and they beat everyone else, but you're telling me the Guardians, they have an above average bullpen. I believe they're 12th in bullpen ERA. They're running a bullpen game tonight. You got that against the Red Sox team that is starting their rookie pitcher who should probably be in AAA. He's just up because of injuries. He's not going to be able to go very far. He's not very good to begin with. They're then going to go to a bottom 10 bullpen. I don't know. This just sets up for the Guardians, who I've been betting on all season. They've been cashing. They're constantly mentioned as underdogs and such. This is a Guardians team in the wild card race. So give me Cleveland at underdogs against Winkowski to knock him around. So there are my 3 MLB bets for you. I think that was around 90 seconds, maybe closer to 120.
Yeah, hard to argue, especially with your call on the Phillies and Braves game. I have a play on that side as well that I think goes hand in hand with yours. And then also, I think anytime you have an opportunity to fade German Marquez, that's an over game probably for me if I had to take a side between the White Sox and the Rockies. I know that both of those offenses have been remarkably inconsistent, but you get to Coors Field in ideal hitting conditions. I think both of these teams are set up very, very well. And even Kopech, who's been good, his Sierra, it basically indicates that he's been a little bit lucky over the last month and a half. As for my 2 MLB plays of the night, let's go right back to Philadelphia with the Braves and the Phillies. I was lucky enough, Reed, to jump on this last night as soon as it opened. Even tweeted about it. I really couldn't believe it that it was still available. Got Braves and Phillies under 8 runs between, like you said, 2 dominant pitchers in the National League this year in Aaron Nola. He gets first billing because I still think of him as a very much a dark horse Cy Young candidate against Spencer Strider. I mean, the numbers for Strider right now, his strikeout per 9 is just under 14. It's 13.8. That's by far and away the highest on the slate. Some of the best numbers in the big leagues. Versus Nola, he's going deep in games. He's second behind Alcantara in innings pitched. The walk rate has gone way down. And this is also somebody that I wrote about this over at BetSided, who has his best numbers of his career in the months of July and in August. I think he understands that he needs to be able to carry the Phillies right now because of their inconsistencies, because the bats tend to go very hot and very cold. And this is a game where you need to rely on your ace, and he's been that guy, especially off of a dominant performance against the Marlins the last time out. I like the under here, still like it at 7.5, but I really like it at 8 for the Braves and for the Phillies at Citizens Bank Ballpark tonight. Other game I like on the Major League slate, it's a prop. Yuli Gurriel of the Houston Astros. They're on the road against the Oakland Athletics today. We talked about Frankie Montas. I mentioned that I had a play on this game. Going back to the over 0.5 singles at -105 as opposed to total bases, because Gurriel's number for that was a little bit too high for my liking. As for the reason why I'm banking on singles, a lot of it is due to past performance. Looking over at Gurriel against Frankie Montas in his career, sitting 344 with 11 hits, 9 of them in 32 at-bats have been singles. The other 2, doubles. So the sample would indicate that when he goes ahead and plays against Montas, and it's a fairly long sample size too, really. This isn't just a couple of at-bats. This is 32 at-bats over the course of their careers going up against each other. And when he hits the ball, it tends not to go very far. He just gets himself and trots himself over to first base for just under even money. I think that's absolutely the play here, as opposed to trying to chase after more total bases than you need to.
Yeah, no, I like that. Being a little conservative, but I like it. So, yeah, there are our best bets. We had a little segue there with some conversation on the Wilson Contreras stuff, but there are our best bets. Let's get that recap graphic up, though. Make sure we get everything in there. So, Ben, he is on the Aces first half money line against the Sky. He's on Yuli Gurriel over half a single, so to get at least one single tonight against the A's, and he's on the under 7.5 in Braves Phillies. I am on the Phillies money line that same game. I'm on the Guardians plus 122 against the Red Sox, and I'm also on the White Sox against the Rockies at -110. There are best bets on a Tuesday.
Love it. Love the fact that we're able to go through that, rally behind some good baseball, and then still be able to get that WNBA play in.
Of course, we always got to get the WNBA in there. And we now turn the page to some college football. Some Big Ten talk with some Big Ten guys. Ben, of course, is an Indiana alum. I am a Wisconsin alum, as you could see by the helmet behind me. Ben, I don't see any Indiana behind you, but you went there, so that's all that matters. So let's talk.
The degree is on the other side of the office. Now I have to make sure that, so I don't look stupid, I get something Indiana behind me at some point down.
Yes. So let's talk some Big Ten here, though, because of course we have Ohio State, who enters as the number 2 choice to win the college football playoff this year, behind only Alabama. They are plus 300 to win the national championship. So of course they are massive favorites to win the Big Ten. They are minus 215 to win the Big Ten championship. And this is a team, they're opening against Notre Dame in Columbus. They're laying 14.5. Ben, I know we previewed that game at this point, it's like a few months ago. But this Ohio State team is going to be favored by double digits in every single regular season game and the Big Ten championship, and then they'll be in the college football playoff. That's the expectation, at least. They bring back C.J. Stroud at quarterback, the runner-up for the finalist for the Heisman. Jackson Smith-Njigba at receiver, 15 catches, 347 yards, 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl. Travion Henderson, a true freshman last year, he ran wild. I mean, this offense is going to be arguably the best in the country. For my money, they are the best offense in the country. So this is a legit national title contender. So, Ben, the real question is, what happened last year? Why did Michigan make the national championship last year if all these guys are back? Well, it's because of the defense. The defense was soft. The defense didn't really show up when they needed it. They were gashed by 2, we'll call it above average offenses in Oregon at home. And then they lost to Michigan on the road, an offense that also carved them up. When Ohio State lost, it's because their defense couldn't hold up. Well, what do you do this offseason? You go get arguably the best available defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. Knowles comes over. He built a top 5 offense in Stillwater with the Pokes. He's now here. He brings over McAllister, one of his best guys in the secondary. Zach Harrison, he's a defensive end that's going to be a first-round pick. I mean, this defense, the pieces are there for this defense to be better, more physical. Ben, what is your expectation for the Buckeyes after everything I just laid out? Are they that good to win the national championship? Or are you still concerned about this defense?
No, I'm not as concerned because I think they addressed a lot of those glaring issues. And you still know that even with the highly talented recruits, a lot of those secondaries too were really young. Need a little bit more time to develop. You mentioned the coaching change there as well. They're by far and away the class of the Big Ten. And I know that Michigan is coming off a really good year and winning the Big Ten and really stunning Ohio State along the way. But C.J. Stroud taking the next step in his development. What amazes me, Reed, is that this offense is projected to be even better than it was a season ago. And they lost a bunch of playmakers on this team, including 2 wide receivers that went in the top 11 of the NFL draft. To me, that's even more remarkable that you can continue to replace that type of production that easily. Like, it's Ohio State and it's Alabama and probably Georgia to a certain extent. There's very few schools that can replace that kind of production just with a snap of a finger. And that's what Ryan Day and his staff have been able to do at Ohio State. I think they deserve the fact that their win total is at 10.5, and the over right now is a massive favorite at minus 210. This makes all the sense in the world. It's just, are they going to have that game where you think to yourself, what happened here? Like the game against Oregon last year. Oregon was not a particularly good team a season ago. How do you lose that game in week 2 at home? Those are some of the mistakes that they need to make sure they avoid to make sure that the levels, they're not trying to fight and claw their way into the college football playoff this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair concerns. And like I said, that defense wasn't physical enough to handle an Oregon team that kind of got hot on offense. And then Stroud, I think he was a little, I don't want to say nervous is the right word, but there was a difference between Stroud early in the year and later in the year. I mean, the numbers are just absurd, but yeah, a little earlier in the year, even that opener against Minnesota, it feels like there was a little bit of jitters there, which is, it's fine. He's freshman, it's okay. But the numbers are just where they were outstanding. I mean, 72% completion percentage, 44 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I mean, Stroud's going to be ridiculous this year. Jackson Smith-Njigba, like I listed numbers before. I mean, the kid's arguably was the best of the 3 there last year. Those Olave and Garrett Wilson, they went top 11, like you said. Now you got Smith-Njigba, who might be the best. Who knows what the ceiling is for him? So Ohio State is a warranted minus 210 favorite to win the Big Ten. I would be absolutely shocked if they're not at the very least in the college football playoff. They might look like the best team. Just how many levels they are above the rest of the Big Ten, in my opinion. I mean, Michigan, they're going to be good again. Win total at 9.5. This is going to be a good Michigan team, but it's not going to be the same as last year. Last year was kind of their year to really get that Ohio State monkey off their back. I want to, before I talk about another potential contender that people look at, I want to ask you about the state of Indiana football, because you had that dream year in 2020. Tom Allen inks the extension. Looks like it's all going up. Last year, obviously went haywire. Nothing went your way. Injuries everywhere after the dream season. What are you expecting for Indiana this year? Win total 4.5, I believe, right now at most sports books. So what are you expecting for Indiana? Can they get back to a bowl this year, or is it going to take another year?
I think they can get back to a bowl because they went ahead and understood the urgency of this. So Tom Allen completely recognizing that between injuries and the offense taking a massive regression, losing their starting quarterback, who now transferred over to Washington, who at one point was, a dark horse Cy Young candidate, too much baseball, dark horse Heisman candidate. And it just didn't end up working out. Michael Penix continued to get hurt. And now they brought in a pretty big name in Connor Bazelak from the University of Missouri, played in the SEC over the last couple of years, played for a smart offensive mind in Coach Eli over at Mizzou. I have some doubts about Bazelak coming in, but I think his experience will be helpful. I'd rather see them go with one of the younger quarterbacks to really have it at that position, especially when you're losing some of your key running backs from a season ago. I think the defense will be better. The defense was so good ways a season ago. You see this a lot in the NFL, Reed, where a strong defense that leads the NFL in takeaways and interceptions. There's just a regression to the mean the following year between a bunch of injuries, especially with Tywan Mullen, their star corners. It didn't work out for them this year between the injuries. They do lose Micah McFadden, who got drafted in the NFL, one of their all-time great linebackers. But I do think they'll be competitive, and I think they made the necessary changes, both with their offensive coordinator bringing Walt Bell. Tom Allen's going to have more instincts, more opportunities to vocalize himself on what he wants for the defense to be a little bit more forcing turn, really attacking the ball. That's what they were so good at when he took over from Kevin Wilson. So I think ceiling, they're probably a 6 or a 7 win team. I don't think a magical season is coming. A lot of it depends on Bazelak and how he does in his first year at Indiana and how the offense adjusts with Walt Bell. But I do think there's plenty of talent. It's by far and away the best recruiting class, Reed, that they've ever had at the school. So even though it went terribly, terribly wrong, I think there's still a lot of positive signs for Indiana that I think they can probably clear that 4.5 win total or two.
Yeah. I don't have my projected win total up. It's on the other computer. So I will mention that elsewhere. But I will say that this Indiana team, terrible injury luck last year. Everyone was banged up, like you mentioned. And they really hit the portal hard this year. They got a Texas A&M transfer. They beefed up the defense with transfers. I mean, Allen knows that he needs, like, the recruiting's going to come, but he also needs some serious upgrades for this season. He needs to kind of revamp the roster a little bit. So I like how aggressive he was in the portal. Again, I mean, you look at the schedule and it's going to be an upward, push to get over, 4.5 wins. I mean, listen, they do have Illinois, Idaho, Western Kentucky. They go to Cincinnati. Can they get some revenge there against a possibly rebuilding Cincinnati squad? They go to Rutgers. Like, where does Rutgers is obviously, that's the bottom half of the Big Ten there, but can they go to Rutgers and go get a win? They host Maryland. Maryland has a prolific offense with Tagovailoa. Can they kind of avoid, losing a home game there? Because those are the games you got to get if you're Indiana and you want to go back to a bowl. No games are going to come really easy to you except for pretty much Idaho. So, yeah, I mean, Indiana, it's going to be an upward climb, but I still think with Tom Allen at the helm, this team, I wasn't necessarily buying it as much as some people were when they had that magical year. It felt a little smoke and mirrors-y. They're not as bad as they were last year, though, so I think they're somewhere in the middle. They will get back to a 6 or 7 win season, not this year, though. I think they're fighting. They're probably 4 or 5 wins. That's like a majority of how many games they're going to win. You know what I mean? Like percentage-wise.
And that's where the odds, and that's where the odds makers have it as well.
Exactly.
I do think their defense, especially with the injury concerns that they had last year, they're probably their top 4 or 5 guys are on defense. They also have probably the best kicker in the Big Ten. I know college kickers don't matter, but they do. So they matter a lot. College kickers, though, that defines games for you. Yes. So I think they might be able to steal one because Charles Campbell is back. But a lot of good playmakers on this defense. And again, if Bazelak is able to take that strong step, there's some issues with him regarding communication between him and some of his receivers. I've heard from his time at Missouri, according to a couple of sources. It's a fresh start at Indiana. Tom Allen is very much a program type of guy. Like he wants the recruits that are going to make sense, that are going to take his future outlook of what he wants the team to be. And I know this is a lot of Indiana football talk for probably most people, so I promise I'm going to wrap this up in a second. But they don't bring in Bazelak. They don't feel like he's going to be someone that can help provide leadership at a key position when they know that their offense took a massive step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, totally. And so I guess my brief, I mean, if you want to read a full analysis on this, I have plenty of win total stuff up on BetSided, 2 for each conference, 1 over, 1 under. My strongest opinion in this conference, in a conference loaded with teams that have a win total of 7.5, 8.5, trying to catch Ohio State. One team I'm not buying at all, and with a win total of 8.5 is Penn State. Under 8.5, I believe I got a minus 125. This is a team that just inked James Franklin to a massive contract extension. They're running back Sean Clifford again at quarterback. They are replacing 5 NFL draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. Meanwhile, this is also a team that has a top quarterback recruit in Drew Aller, a Gatorade National Player of the Year in Nicholas Singleton at running back. I mean, this is a team that is looking forward to next season where they have a top 3 recruiting class coming in. So what if this season goes off the rails kind of quickly? You look at their first 3 games. They go to Purdue for the first game of the season. That is going to be a tough game. The Penn State, I believe, is a small road favorite. They then get a home game against Ohio. They'll win that one. Then they go to Auburn. Auburn may not be that good anymore, but this is still an SEC team, and they're going on the road, a team that that Penn State squeaked by last year. So if Penn State's staring at a 1-2 start, can there be a youth movement as they prepare for 2023 and they look to contend in the Big Ten with that sick recruiting class, that top quarterback prospect, and that sick running back recruit? Like, there's a chance Penn State is looking forward to next year very quickly. I mean, Clifford, to me, running a little stale. The offensive line was terrible last year. Like I said, a lot of turnover on the defense side of the ball. A new DC and Manny Diaz. I could just see more 500-ish football from Penn State, what they've been the last 3 years. I mean, this is a team that went 7-6 last year. Are we really going to expect Penn State to get back to being a contender with the same quarterback again, with Clifford, a guy who kind of is just playing out this season until Aller is prepared to take over? That might happen during the year if the games, if they fall behind the 8 ball this year. So I think Franklin is planning for 2023. Just got that contract extension. I like under 8.5 on Penn State. This feels like 8 is more likely than 9, in my opinion.
Penn State always seems to be the team that ton of preseason hype, and then they win some meaningful games in the early portion of the season. And then when crunch time comes and they're supposed to hold their own against Ohio State or Michigan, they seem to fall flat. And I should say a couple of years ago, they against Indiana on the road, and that what led the Hoosiers to that magical season. I think Franklin's a fine coach. I don't think he deserved that max type of extension when the numbers haven't been, effective compared to where it needs to be. Stability at this point, it's Penn State. There's a whole lot of sort of overlying issues there, but it makes sense. Like, you're trying to run it back even with some changes. Like, you're trying to make the best of both worlds, and that doesn't typically work out in college. It's the stable teams that you have a plan and consistency, unless you're at the elite level where Nick Saban is replacing your offensive coordinator, going from Lane Kiffin to Steve Sarkisian to Bill O'Brien, whoever they have now. So love the idea of Penn State being a team that's going to be in contention with the likes of Ohio State or Michigan this year.
Yeah, and again, last 2 seasons, 11-11. I get that the 2020 year was sideways for a lot of teams with COVID and everything. It was a weird year, I understand, but this team went 7-6 last year. Again, I just think that start of the season, I could see it now. I could see this team stumbling out of the gate, and Franklin says, you know what? We're going to give our future guy who we think we could build a contender around. We're going to give him extra reps. So to me, under 8.5, I just think 8 wins is much more likely than 9 wins. I could see this really going off the rails, and you got like another 7-6 year on the way. So to me, Penn State, just a lot of turnover there. I don't see 8 wins. I project them closer to 8 wins. I think under is the play here. But plenty of Big Ten football talk. I have more stuff on BetSided. Go to college football tab, win totals previews. We had our Pac-12 win totals go up today. Ben, you remember Bailey Zappi from last year in Western Kentucky?
I was kind of hoping that Bailey Zappi would be one of those like late round selections, just sort of sitting around.
Yeah, what do you mean the Patriots drafted
quarterback
him?
every year, and then eventually you trade him. But he got
Patriots
drafted a little bit
him.
earlier than I thought.
Yeah, Patriots drafted him. Well, there is another situation brewing in Pullman, Washington, with Washington State and an FCS transfer. So if you want to go read about that, go check it out over on BetSided. But let's talk about tonight, though, because like I said, I got to get out of here soon and go to the Mets-Yankees game. I got my Starling Marte jersey on. I'm ready to go. Mets, slight home underdogs, around that like minus 105 even money spot. Yankees, minus 120, minus 115, depending on where you look. Total set at 8. Jordan Montgomery for the Yanks. Taijuan Walker for the Mets. Ben, I will go to you for your best bet on the game of the night. And any other thoughts you think heading into the Subway Series?
I wonder if I'm going to take a play on tonight. It's a good pitching matchup, and I know that Montgomery and Taijuan Walker weren't expected to be teams that were amongst the best on both of these staffs this year. But if you're looking at the slate overall, Walker has the fifth best WAR amongst all pitchers on the slate tonight. His strikeout rate has been fairly consistent. The thing about Walker this year that I really am impressed with is his ability to keep the ball in the ballpark. His home runs per 9 rate is 0.39. That is by far and away the lowest on tonight's pitching staff. And you're going to need that against a lineup like the Yankees that match the baseball, whether it be at home or away from home, away from the friendly confines that is Yankee Stadium. And then conversely with Montgomery, solid, consistent, reliable. I know his expected ERA and his fielder independent pitching are fairly higher than for ERA, but again, he just doesn't make mistakes. His walk rate is exceptional. Only gives up 1.66 walks per 9 innings. I just see this as a solid pitching matchup, even though both of these two offenses have the ability to get cooking at some point, but it's going to be a solid pitcher's duel. And I think the 8, especially when we've seen it go back and be 7.5 all day. Right now it's available at 8, and I think it's a reasonable number to take it at.
Yeah, no, excellent points all around. I also lean towards the under if I was playing the total. And before I share my likely predictable best bet on the Mets-Yankees game, Ben, I do want to ask you, though, about these two teams. Obviously, like I mentioned, both in sole possession of first place. First time this ever happened between the Yankees and Mets playing each other both in first place. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess Mets have been subject to a few lean years of late, but no, it is crazy, and it's a big series. It's a big, tentpole event. We saw the Yankees come out of the All-Star break and lose that doubleheader to the Astros, and the Astros are breathing down their neck right now at that number 1 seed in the American League. Maybe that doesn't mean like much, but I think it just shows that the Astros. It feels like the Yankees. I don't want to say they peaked too early, but it feels like the Yankees kind of took. It seems like the Yankees took over early. They've been kind of the talk of the town. Aaron Judge, battling for MVP favorite and such, whereas the Astros have been just steady about it. They've just been racking up wins. Now they're crawling closer to the Yankees to take that best record in baseball over. Meanwhile, the Mets, they've been able to scratch and claw their way to first place. They've looked great doing it, but now the Braves are the hottest team in baseball. They're peaking at the right time. They look like World Series champs. Ben, any, thoughts heading into this series of, I guess I'll frame it like this. Who needs this series more? I know that the Yankees are going to win the AL East. They're going to be a division winner. And I guess it's simple to say the Mets need this series more because the Mets are maybe in a wild card game if they don't, show up this series. They're, heading towards second place. So I guess who do you think projects to be more of a favorite heading down the stretch of the season? Do you buy the Yankees as this dominant team, or do you think the Mets actually are more well-equipped come playoff time, assuming Jacob deGrom can get healthy?
Yeah, I mean, that's you're assuming.
That was a way wordy answer there. I kind of pivoted midway.
I was going to say, you're assuming what can only be described as unassumable because deGrom is in a rehabilitation start right now at Syracuse. They're hopeful that he might be able to get back to the rotation come early to mid-August, which is really exciting if you're the Mets. I do think it is a more important to them just because of the nature of the NL East. Mets have had a terrific year. The Braves have been absolute fire since midway through the end of May and beyond. Philadelphia, after looking like they weren't going to be a contender, had that big winning streak after they fired. There's just less room for error. And I think while it's a good thing that the Yankees have this massive lead in the division, we've also seen times where teams have looked so dominant and they've had such a large lead that it's hard for them to stay consistent in the month of September, that by the time the playoffs hit, they're just not playing at that same intensity as you still want to be able to have the bye, and that's going to be between them and Houston, the American League, to be able to have that rest with that rotation, with some of those guys like Giancarlo Stanton just went on the IL today. Like, you want these guys to be as healthy as you possibly can. But I think right now the more intense aspect of it, especially being in Flushing tonight, is going to come down to the Mets. And I do trust them to be able to take advantage of that, knowing that it is just another series for the Yankees, and the Mets have a little bit more of that fire on the back of their neck. And I probably just mixed a bunch of it together, but there is a more sense of urgency there.
Don't worry, you mixed expressions up, and I mixed like all of my questions put into one and just kind of like gave a completely wordy answer there. But I will say this
another Tuesday here on BetSlip, though.
I will say this about the Yankees, because I know the Mets, they've cooled off a ton. It's basically just Pete Alonso at this point. The Mets need another bat. It does seem like the Mets are going to be the more aggressive team at the deadline. I know they acquired Daniel Vogelback this weekend. I think there's plenty of more moves on the way for the Mets to bolster this lineup, especially at the bottom. I will say this about the Yankees, though, because I obviously live in this area. I understand. I thought it was very funny that going into the season, everyone's like, oh my God, like, I can't believe Cashman, I can't believe Boone, like, they suck, like, we didn't do anything this offseason, and they go out and win like 60 games before they lose 25. It was just hilarious. I thought it was funny. And now you're starting to see this team come back to earth a little bit, and it's almost like they're evening out. They're a very good team, but to me, they're not winning the World Series. I think the Astros are the better team, top to bottom. I think that the Mets, the Yankees rather, have gotten by on, a lot of really good pitching, to be honest. I think some guys are pitching way over their head, and you're starting to see some injuries creep in. I mean, Judge had a very healthy year. Michael King, their best reliever this year, or Clay Holmes, their closer, but best middle reliever, Michael King. Yeah, he's out for the year now. You're starting to see some cracks come into this Yankees roster that wasn't there all season. So we'll see how it keeps up. But that brings me to my best bet on Tuesday. It's, of course, the Mets money line, -105 at home in front of the hometown crowd, in front of me. I'm 3-2 going to games this year. We'll see if we can make it 4-2.
How are you on the spread, though? That's the really important question. How are you on the run line?
Let's see. We won big the first time. We won a tight one. I think we won that one by one. We won a lot. I'm probably 2-3 on the run line, 3-2 on the money line. I think they won a tight one against the Brewers. But my handicap is this, because I was nervous of Taijuan Walker early this year, and he's kind of figured it out. I thought his K rate was really down this year. I was a little nervous. That's back up. Last 2 months, he's pitching to a below 3 ERA. He has an ERA of 2.55. That's supported by a FIP below 3. So it's not like he's being so, lucky or something in the field. He's pitching pretty much to his ERA. Yeah. It's pretty much a true 2.55 ERA. I like him. I know the Mets struggle against lefties, bottom 10 in ERA and on base percentage against lefties, but if they could just force Montgomery out of this game a little bit earlier, I want to see how this Yankees bullpen responds with King being out now. We've seen Aroldis Chapman struggle. I trust Taijuan Walker a little bit more than I do Montgomery at home. I don't know. Give me the Mets on the money line, home dog. I just don't think Montgomery should be favored right now, especially no Stanton in the lineup either. So, give me the Mets.
I think the play makes sense. You mentioned
it makes sense. I'm wearing a Mets jersey. Well, imagine I went like, I like the Yankees actually. I think that this is a good spot for Montgomery to shove 7 innings.
I mean, we've done shows with Ian McMillan before. It's like the whole concept of the emo bet has been going on in this show the last several months. I think Peter's even done that as well. Like at some point,
I don't roll like that. People could do whatever they want with their money. I would rather just not bet on my team. I truly think the Mets are going to win tonight.
What I do.
I can't because what if my team wins? Then I lose money. They lose and I win. The upside to the money being won isn't worth it for me to. You know what I mean? The other side of it,
Unless you feel like you have the lock of the century, I typically go that direction. If I do involve bets that involve my team, I took a bet against the Cubs. I think it was a prop bet the other day. And a couple of the games
prop bets are fine. If you think some guys are gonna go off straight up money line, I would never bet against the Mets, just because I'm they suck and they're gonna lose. I'd rather be oh, we're just gonna lose then. Like I don't need, like, the money isn't worth it then to like recover my like emotional loss. I'd rather just not bet it.
Right. So, I mean, if this is how
Listen,
you feel about the
I'm like
Mets,
I'm a full on like degenerate, but like I'm not like willing to like win money at like my own team's expense. Like I would never do that.
my new goal is to find the perfect point between you having to bet against the Nets for something that you feel like is absolutely going to happen. Like it's like that scene in Dumb and Dumber. It's like, I'll bet you, I'll give you 5-1 odds that you'll bet today, 10-1, 20-1,
No,
100-1.
It's priceless to me. The emotion is what I strive for.
Everything's got a price, Reed. Everything's got a price.
I don't think I would. I have no interest in betting against my teams. I would rather. That. We gotta like clip this out. I want like some responses here because I know there's a lot of people that will bet against their team and they don't care. I just like would rather not bet. You know what I mean? Like maybe like again, like I think prop bet is okay. Like I think straight up bet, because like that's like directly the win or loss. You know what I mean? Like if like I was gonna take, like, I would never do this, but like if I were to take like Aaron Judge to hit a homer, like that's like that's fine. I guess it makes more sense like basketball or football, where it's like the Giants. Like I would never like CeeDee Lamb to have like 6 catches. Like I'm like, all right, well, like that's like a lock. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe I'd do that. I would never do that, but I could see that. But like I would never bet on the Yankees to beat the Mets. That's just like counterproductive to me.
Fair enough. I
rant
think
over and rant.
Yes. No. Plenty of fun conversation for another time, because I feel like there is a crossover, but maybe we'll save that for another show.
Yeah, no, we will save that for another show. I actually think it is a good debate. We'll see what happens. But Ben, great show. If you like this content, if you like hearing about it, if you should emo bet or not emo bet. I forgot about the poll for another thing I forgot. But the poll is actually a tie. So I guess we're off the hook here because the Mets.
Hold on. We have a little breaking news. I just got word that the New York Mets have taken the lead, and they, by the slimmest of margins, this might be the slimmest win in Daily Betslip history, Reed. The New York Mets at -105 are indeed the community pick today. So you can
great.
Rest assured,
they like the jersey
they
sold.
Saw the jersey, they felt the passion, they got it. It was one last minute vote that ended up being the difference here. So for all of you,
stuff on BetSided,
you made the difference. This was because of you, and we thank you for that.
So yes, the Mets small home underdogs -105 are the community bet. Ben, great show, a lot of great stuff in there. If you do like this content though, just go right below us right there. Make sure you subscribe. We got a bunch of content for you. NFL previews starting up with training camp opening. We got a bunch of stuff for you. So may all your bets hit, and we will see you tomorrow.
Go Mets.